Hey folks, welcome to another review with yours truly, Sam Healey, right here on the Dice Tower. Today we're going to be taking a look at Ichor. This is a new title from Bitewing Games that is a re-implementation of Battle for Olympus from a few years ago. It is designed by none other than Reiner Knizia, and it is an asymmetric strategy game for two players. Let's get down to the table and take a look, shall we? So here I have a game of Ichor set up for you, and just to take note, the game does come with 8 different cards for each side, so 8 different characters, and you're only going to use 6 on the smaller side of the board. If you flip this cloth mat over to the other side, there is a 7x7 grid, and in that case, you'll use 7 of your characters instead of only 6. But just take note that you won't use all of your characters at the same time, and they are randomly chosen. Now, another thing that I want to make sure I mention is that I am using all of the deluxe components for the game. The game comes with these wooden tokens that are going to be available in the game, but then the rest of the game has these cardboard standees in the game as well. So I'm using the acrylic ones and then the kind of the plastic tokens for each side over here as well. So I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned that. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the game is asymmetric, and that is because each of these different gods have a different ability that you're going to be doing or that you're going to be able to fire off during the course of the game one time, but those powers are different between the monsters over here and the gods over here, so that's why it's called an asymmetric game. The powers that the monsters have are different than the powers that the gods have. But the whole point of the game is to get all 14 in the smaller on the smaller side of the board. If you're using the other side, you have 19 tokens, so these extra 5 are added in. But you're basically just trying to get all of your tokens out on the board before your opponent does. And if you've done that, well, you win the game. But how many points do you get when you win the game? You would basically count to see how many of your opponent's tokens are still off the board, and that gives you your total. Then you will switch sides and play again. Whomever has the highest total of points at the end of those 2 games is the winner. On your turn, you basically have 2 options, and you have to choose one or the other. And that is, first of all, you could use your one of your god's abilities, remembering that each of those abilities are one-time uses. So whenever you use a god's ability, you have to turn it over to denote that it has been used. There are some game elements that will allow you to flip them back over, but that notwithstanding, each of the gods' powers and each of the monsters' powers are one-time uses per game. The other option that you have available to you is to make a normal move. Now, when you make a normal move, you're going to move one of your gods or one of your monsters as many number of spaces in one straight line, whether it is a vertical or a horizontal move, until they are face-to-face with their opponent in that column or row, which basically means that you can't normally jump over a person that's there. You have to go until they're met, and then if you do that, you're going to place one of your tokens in each of the places that you crossed and the one that you left from. When you make a basic move, if you pass over one of your own tokens on the board, you simply leave it there. But if you pass over an opponent's token, you'll replace it with one of your own. A monster and a god cannot be in the same space at the same time. Additionally, a monster or a god cannot be in the same space as one of your own or your opponent's tokens. So basically, if you stop in a space that has a token, then you'll remove it from the board, but you won't replace it with one of your own. Now, to just give you a simple feel for the game, we'll go through a couple of turns because they are pretty quick. Every game, the person who is the monsters will go first. And so in this particular case, the Cyclops has a pretty strong opening move. So we're going to go ahead and use his ability. His ability says that after moving as normal, move a second time as normal, then remove this figure. So you are going to be sacrificing the Cyclops in order to use it, but we're going to go ahead and do it. So we're going to make a normal move, which will move him up here like this, allowing us to put out 2 of our tokens. And then we're going to use the Cyclops' special ability, and he will move as normal again. And we're going to move him all the way over here, which allows us to put out 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But he is done, and he is actually removed from the board. Whenever you remove a figure from the board, they do not have a token put into their place whenever a character is removed from the board like this. But that's the opening move for the monsters. So now, on the god side, Hermes is not really enjoying this too much, so he's just going to make a regular move, and he's going to move all the way down here into this corner, and that allows him to put 1 here where he left, and then he crossed over 3 of the monsters tokens, and those come back off the board like so. The monsters will continue by using the Siren's ability, and this says place any god onto this space, then move away as normal. So they're going to take Poseidon and place Poseidon right here, and then they're going to move away as normal, which means he's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 like this, allowing us to place out 1, 2. Now, we won't be able to place 1 here because Poseidon is there, and you can't have a token and a god or monster in the same space. So that's how that would have turned out. But since we've used the Siren's ability, we'll go ahead and turn that over, and the game would continue with the gods taking a turn now. And that's how it would go back and forth until, as I said earlier, all of one person's tokens are out on the board, that player being the winner of the game. They would then take account of how many of their opponent's tokens are not on the board. That gives them their point total for the game that they won. Sides would flip, and they would play out again, and whoever has the highest score at the end of those 2 games would be considered the winner. Now, there is one other way that the game can end, and that is if one person's characters are cornered in such a way that they cannot make a move, that player will have lost. Scores are tallied as in a normal game, and then sides are flipped and you play another game, and so forth and so on. Now, another thing that I wanted to go over is the Gates and Reinforcements expansion. And basically, the Gates expansion comes with these 8 different gates. You shuffle them up, and then 2 are randomly placed out onto the board in this format. On the other side, they're 1 more space away. And basically, these represent gates that are on the board that you cannot end on, but you can always travel through. And they do a couple of things. For these 2 examples here, whenever you move through like this situation, I would be able to place 1 here, 1 here, and then I would also be able to place 2 right here on this line, and whomever crosses that is able to replace those with whomever they are. So that's how that one works. This one over here, whenever you cross through it, you're going to randomly replace Apollo with one of the 2 that you don't start with. So it's a way for you to kind of use some of the ones that didn't come out to play. But there's a number of different, like I said, 8 different gates that you can use, and that'll change up how the game works. But each side also comes with 3 new people that you can put into your deck as far as characters that you can use, but they also come with another, a 4th hero, so to speak. But the important part of that 4th hero is that it changes the game. It comes with 2 different conditions. So if you're going to use any of these characters, it's recommended that you use these 2 characters, the Caledonian Boar and Hera, because they also have different winning conditions. And so if you're going to use one, you're going to use the other, and you use those new victory conditions as well. So just keep that in mind. But I just wanted to mention that because it is available for you. That's basically, though, how you play Ichor. Let's get to my final thoughts. All right, so that's basically how you play Ichor. It's not a difficult game at all as far as what you have to do, because you only have 2 choices to make on your turn, whether or not you're going to use your character's special ability or move them as per usual with normal... or move them with normal movement and not their special ability that the card has. So that's really the only 2 choices that you have. Additionally, the goal or the objective of the game is to simply get all of your tokens out onto the board in any way, shape, or form. Now, of course, as we mentioned before, the movements have restrictions and how you can move and where you can move and all of that kind of thing. But generally speaking, the concepts of the game are simple, which is why I call it simple. I don't think that it's going to be overbearing for anyone out there. If you can play checkers, or if you can have a rudimentary understanding of how chess plays, you'll be able to grasp the objective of this game and the mechanisms employed to get you to that objective fairly easily, which is why I call it simple. But with that clarification of what I mean by simple, let's go ahead and get to my pros and cons. My first pro of the game is I like the fact that it is a 2-player game. I'm really coming to enjoy just 2-player games a lot recently, and that's mainly because I would imagine that's how I get most of my games played nowadays. I just have my wife and I. We do have kids that will play from time to time and so forth and so on, but more often than not, if I'm playing a game, I'm playing it 2-player, and when you come to a game that is specifically designed for just 2 players, it makes a little bit more sense. It makes for a little bit more of an enjoyable time because you don't feel like you're missing anything by not having the full complement of players, and you're not cutting out certain rules here and there to curtail the play down to 2 players for you. So that's one of the reasons why I enjoy 2-player games right now. And along with that, Reiner Knizia is really good at designing 2-player games. And a lot of his 2-player titles in the past have been ones that I've gravitated towards. And so that's another reason why I wanted to give this a positive for being just a 2-player game. The component quality for this one is really done well. And I don't mean just the deluxe components. Now, I haven't even taken these out, but I can tell, and I did experience them while I was at the booth at Origins where I picked this up. And these are nice, chunky wooden tokens that are going to stand the test of time. So if you don't spring the extra cash to get the deluxe components, which you don't really need to, I just really like deluxe components, and they were available, so I went ahead and did it. But these are good. These are good enough. So I did want to mention that these, while they aren't the deluxe components, they're still really nice and they will work well for you as you go through that. The cardboard tokens will also work well for you as well. They are not bad for having retail. So all of the components are well done, and the cards are a good linen finish and a decent cardstock as well. So all of the components work really well. The deluxe components, I do want to kind of brag on them a little bit. They're really nice. I'm not a huge fan of standees, but acrylic standees really just kind of add a little layer of polish on the game. And I think in a game like this, it just heightens your enjoyment of the game, if ever so slightly. But that ever so slightly is important for me, so I do want to mention that. The basic components are really nice, but the deluxe components are that much nicer and then some. So if you can spring the extra few bucks for the deluxe components, I would definitely recommend you do that, but they're not necessary, so don't break the bank if you don't really need them or if it's not a big deal for you. But for me, I'm a huge aesthetic gamer, and so I think it was worth it. We'll talk about one component in particular a little bit later, as it rubbed me a little bit the wrong way, but we'll get to that later. My third pro is gameplay, and that is because it is straightforward, seamless, not difficult at all. Even the special abilities on all of the different monsters and all of the different gods, they were not difficult to understand. One of the things that I really liked about this, as far as gameplay is concerned, is that each monster card and each god card had not only an iconic reference to what their special ability did, but it also had it delineated for you at the bottom and spelled out for you in no certain terms. I really enjoy the fact that they did that because the iconography on the card makes sense after the first time you read it. And so it's not that difficult. In addition to that, having player aids to help with gameplay really does make a difference, because while I'm going over my turn, even on our first few games, when I'm going over what I want to do on my turn, my opponent can be looking at their player aid card, not having to basically give away who they're about to use by pointing at their card and reading it and picking it up and all this other kind of stuff. They can just take their player aids and be, just nonchalantly looking through it. And so that's a gameplay impact of player aids. I really do enjoy that. I think player aids are something that should really not be overlooked when you're producing a game. And I'm glad that even in this small 2-player game, they didn't feel like it was a good thing to skimp on player aids, even though everything is basically right here in the rulebook. Imagine having to pass a rulebook back and forth all the time. Player aids are great, and I just wanted to mention that in the gameplay section because it is a pro that affects gameplay in a positive way. My last pro is going to be the win conditions, and the win conditions for an asymmetric game have to have that other layer of play. Because the game doesn't take so long, you're really going to be spending about 45 minutes, maybe 60 minutes for 2 games of this. And that's really necessary because in an asymmetric game, and you're randomly determining which monsters and which gods you're going to be using in each of those games, one side can sometimes seem very heavy-handed compared to the other one. And when you have a game that's like that, an asymmetric game, it's necessary for you to flip sides and play through, and then whoever wins by the greatest differential is the winner. I don't mind it when games do that. Additionally, you don't have to do it. You can play however you wish. If you just want to do a one-off and say, well, you got me this time, I'm going to get you next time, that kind of thing, absolutely okay. But I think it's cool that asymmetric games add that in there because it's important to understand that your side is not necessarily balanced with my side, and so you might have a better chance to win than I do. We're going to flip those sides now, and now I might have the better chance to win than you do, and whoever can win the best is the one who is the winner. I like it when games do that because I like having asymmetric abilities, I like having asymmetric powers, and that's an easy fix. And on such a short game, it's a super easy fix for balance, and it makes things that much more fun. I'm a huge fan of variable player powers in games, and this one has it to a T, and I really enjoy that. Now, my only con to the game is related to that component I briefly mentioned during my pros, and that is the playmat. The playmat is made out of cloth, and I am concerned. It has not yet started to fall apart, but the stitching and such, I've seen similar products like this fall apart in the past rather quickly. The more use, the quicker it falls apart. I don't know that it's going to happen. I'm hoping that it doesn't, but I don't like cloth boards or play surfaces, if I can put it that way. Having a playmat, super duper. Do I think that this needs to be a neoprene playmat? Absolutely not, because that would mean that it won't be able to fit into this, and it's not that big of a deal, but it is a con for me because I would have much rather have seen a quad folding board or something to that effect other than a cloth. Now, would a quad folding board have fit in this box with all of the deluxe components? I don't know. Maybe that was one of the reasons they made that decision. I probably would have just bit the bullet on that and had a little bit of lid lift to have a mounted board in this instead of the cloth. I just really don't like cloth boards. But that's, to each their own. Maybe you don't like it either. Maybe you do like them, whatever. I just don't like how they don't lay down flat. They have all of those creases. The cards don't lay flat. The standees could possibly tip over. I know it's a minor nitpick, but it is a nitpick for me. So that's my only con of the game. So my rating of this game is going to be a strong 7 out of 10. I really did enjoy the game. My wife enjoyed the game as well. It's one that we will be able to pull out and play and enjoy. And there's a lot of replayability there because your team is randomly constructed at the beginning of every game. I really enjoy that. I like having the gates expansion with the reinforcements because that adds 3 more players. It also changes the winning conditions. And I like what the gates do as far as flipping up how some of those different god powers and monster powers are going to conflict with each other using those different gates. So the gates and the reinforcements expansion was a great positive to this, and it's really what kept it up in that 7 range. I think it probably would have dipped into a 6. Not that I didn't like it, it's just that with that extra playability, it raises it up to a 7 for me. So 7 out of 10 for Ichor. Thanks for joining me. We certainly appreciate it. We'll see you guys and gals on the flip side. Take care.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you like this review or whatever you just watched, wasn't it amazing? Check out our channel, Dice Tower. We have all kinds of things. We review games, we do top 10s, we play games live. It's all about board games, but especially the people who play them. Check out Dice Tower YouTube channel.